Hey guys, welcome to the Titanium Vault. I'm your host, RJ Bates III, and today we're sitting down with Mr. Stratton Daddy. Stratton Brown, how you doing, man?
I'm doing great, man. Thank you so much for having me on.
Yeah, so we were just talking before the podcast. I think when we met, it was 2020 during my first 50 deals, 50 states, 50 days challenge. And we did a deal together. You were one of my deals. We did a JV
Yep.
deal in Indianapolis, and we were laughing about it because I my entire involvement was essentially receiving a comment on the live where you said, "Hey, I've got a deal in Indianapolis. Do you want a JV?" And that was pretty much it. Cassie pretty
Oh yeah,
much
bro.
handled from that point on.
And we couldn't get it sold either. Like I went to a bunch of other people and everyone said no. Indianapolis is weird.
Yeah,
It didn't make any sense like why some people were saying no and then I think we made like 10 to 20 on it or something.
yeah. It was. I think we made like 10 each, so I think we sold it
Yeah,
for
like
20
it
for
was a good
Indy.
sized deal and other people were telling me like no, like this doesn't work at all.
Yeah. So that was cool. And then reached out to Dean the other day, said, "Hey man, I want to be on y'all's podcast." We recorded that, and so had to get you guys on the podcast one at a time to go through your story. And I started doing some more research, and I saw that back in the day, I guarantee you, I spent a couple of Saturday nights here in Texas watching you play for the Fresno State Bulldogs. So talk about that because you said that was a huge part of your life playing football for Fresno State. So why was that
Yeah,
such a
man.
big part of your life?
So sports has been a huge part of my life just because it showed me I can work hard at something and then create what I want. Right. So, like in high school, I wasn't very athletic. I worked really hard. I had 3 scholarships coming out of high school. I had one in rugby, I had 4 I had in track, and then I had a couple in football. And I went to a junior college and I had to work my ass off in order to get a scholarship in the first place
Right.
out of the junior college. Like, if you make it out of junior college, or if you listen to this, you're at a junior college, you're a man because we lived off of like one meal a day that was some shake up pasta and Kool Aid. And that's all we had. Right. And I mean, if you can make it out of a junior college, you are legit. But it showed me like I can get really, really good at a thing and I can see like, oh wow, this actually work like hard work works. And a
Yep.
lot of people don't get that opportunity growing up.
I
Like
love
that's
that.
why like being involved in something is so good.
So we were talking about when you were at the junior college, you had a couple of offers and you had to make a decision on where you were going to go and you chose Fresno State. So I want to touch base on that because the thing is entrepreneurs, we have these decisions that we make and like making it more granular when it comes to real estate. And you listen to a podcast like this where I bring on, hey, multifamily investors, storage units, wholesaling, flip, landlords. There's so many different paths that you can take. And ultimately, at some point in time, you have to make a decision on what you're going to do. And it's the same thing with you. You were a student athlete at a junior college. You had to make a decision on what you were going to do, Fresno State or other D1 schools. Talk about the importance of that decision, kind of the experience, and then how it transitioned into making a big difference in your life.
Dude, so if you are listening to this and let's say you have not left your hometown yet, the best thing you could do is leave your hometown. It is going to show you, and we'll probably move back to Salt Lake this year. We're looking for houses right now. But moving away from my hometown, learning more about yourself and like experiencing the world is going to change your perspective on everything. I mean, everything that you've ever learned in your life is really from your parents or from your neighborhood.
Yep.
Like all of your political views, your religious views, everything else is kind of just ingrained in you and you don't have a chance to like really see the world and get exposed to people. So when I came home, I tried out for Seattle. I was reading a bunch of books on real estate because I thought I was going to make a fuck ton of money. Didn't make any money. Right. But I started going to meetups and I met Alan Folio. And Alan, I met him for the first time. I was at a meetup and like I was talking to him about stuff. He's like, yeah, 3 years ago, I was making 20 or 30 grand a year. Now I make $200,000 a month. And he says, if you don't believe me, and he just pulls out his phone and shows me all these checks. He was like, here's all these checks. I own 60 rentals. I have another portfolio in Indiana with me and a partner, and I'm going to buy a jet.
Wow.
Not once did I ever hear anybody utter any of those words ever growing up. And I grew up like middle class. Both my parents were entrepreneurs. My best friend's dad's an entrepreneur. Majority of my relatives are entrepreneurs. But I mean, I grew up Mormon in the country in Utah, so everybody I'd say would be humble, right? And nobody's going to be like outward about what they're trying to accomplish and what they're doing.
Right.
And then to hear someone actively be like, no, bro, I'm buying a jet. This is what I'm doing. Here's what I've come from. And I ended up working for him. And then I ended up running a lot of his day to day. And that's what really changed my life.
Was that in Fresno?
And I was in Fresno. Like that would have not, if I would have stayed in Salt Lake, I would have ended up like probably working for my dad as an electrician. And I hated doing that, right? And so like I didn't want to move home because I knew I didn't want to be an electrician, dude. I wanted to like actually do something. I was like, okay, well, I like real estate. Only reason I chose real estate is so I was like, all right, I think I can make as much money in the NFL in real estate. Like that was the whole goal. Initially,
Right.
was just to make six figures like practice squad money. And so it started off with that home inspection business. And I, again, mapped it out. All right, I have to do this many inspections a day in order to hit six figures a year.
Is
right?
that what
Okay,
you were
that'll be
looking
practice
at
squad money.
NFL wise? Like you were pretty much practice squad if you were to go to that path?
If I would have made it, and I was like, let's be conservative, because my DB coach at Fresno State put out 7 to 9 first round draft picks at DB.
Right.
Like he coached Jadeveon Clowney, Melvin, the other guy at South Carolina. He put out D'Angelo Hall, bro. He was there with Lamar Jackson at Louisville after he left Fresno State.
Wow.
And so he was like, Strat, you are one of the hardest working people I know. He was like, but in all reality, you'll probably be like practice squad or a teams guy. And he's the only dude I ever listened to. And everybody's like, oh, well, you can't let him tell you to be that way. I knew he cared for me and he knew how hard I worked and he knew how much I watched films. Like, bro, this is what you're looking at. He's like, I can tell you this because I have a resume of world-class talent that I have developed. And this is where you're at on that scale. He was like, you can watch a ton of film still and you work really hard, but some things you really can't control. And that's a hard reality of sports.
But think about how important of a conversation that was, because you graduated 2015, 2016?
17, like
17.
16, 17.
So we're talking about 6 years ago.
Yeah.
You could easily still be, essentially sacrificing your body on the practice squad.
Chasing the dream, bro, to make dog shit money.
Right. But instead, because he told you the truth and you accepted it, which is kudos to you for accepting it, because most hard-headed athletes say, well, let me go prove you wrong. You accepted it, and then you went out and created something with yourself in real estate. I mean, that's a huge part of your journey at this point.
Oh, yeah. And I mean, bro, my entire life has been proving people wrong, right? My dad, I remember when I first got started playing football at like 8 years old, he's like, you're probably not going to make the A team. I make the A team at 8 years old. And I'm like, in your face, Dad, I told you I was going to do it, right? And everything's been like a chip on my shoulder. But for whatever reason, I could trust him and he knew like what I was trying to do. Like he knew I was with the dude every day, right? Like watching film. Like he was like my dad essentially at that point, my senior year in college. I was with him every day doing film breakdowns, whatever, come up with the defensive game plan. And so like I knew I could trust him with what he was saying and there was no malice. There wasn't him trying to be shitty or anything else. It was like, I need you to be straight with me because I trusted him. I was like, bro, you've put out dogs. Where am I at?
Right.
What are we going to do here?
I love that, man. And again, going back to the importance of making decisions along your journey. I mean, the decision that we made back in 2015 to say, hey, we're going to go all in on wholesaling. I look back at that changed my life. Whereas I could have been stubborn and said, well, I don't want to consider my contracting business a failure by shutting that down. Instead, it was like, hey, I'm completely okay with saying that was a failure. We're shutting it down and we're going to go all in on this. It's very similar to what you did with football by saying, hey, well, I'm walking away from that. I'm going to go chase my dreams elsewhere. You found real estate. So what was like the first, I guess, monumental moment where you knew, hey, real estate is my future. It's going to be my career?
That's a good question. I don't know. It was when I made the decision, it was just going to work, if that makes sense. Like I'm going to, you know what I'm saying? Like this is what's going to happen.
Right.
Because like I had no life skills, bro. I dropped out of college and I was a single dad.
Right.
Like it was like me and my son against the world at that point. When I started working for the other guy, I'd take my son with me and go knock on NODs, and I just have my son in the baby carrier like this, and I'd be knocking on doors like, "Hey, you interested in selling your house?" And they're like, "Nope." I'm like, "Cool," and I'd go to the next one. And then when I wasn't doing that, I went back when Mojo Dialer was a decent fucking dialer.
Right.
I'd have Mojo on the go on my phone, and I'd be the park is probably 5 minutes away from my house now. I would go and I'd push my son on a stroller throughout the park for hours at a time, and I'd just cold call walking around the park because that was the only time my son would be quiet.
Wow.
Right. But like it was always going to work is what I would say. Cause like even now, bro, shit gets hard, but like there's no other option. If you take that way and there is no plan B and there should never ever be a plan B and you don't really have any other options, like that is what it is.
So
And so
when
like I wasn't making a lot of money working for the guy either.
So when you were cold calling, you were doing that for this other guy, right?
Yeah. I just was like, all right, I need to learn from you. I ended up like running a lot of his marketing, running the office, day-to-day sales team. But like with that, when I was not cold calling, me and my son were with him. And so he taught me everything, how to like carry yourself as a businessman, how to act, how to talk to people, the value of money, right? Hey, Stratton, I'm a big Bob Proctor guy because of him. He was like, Strat, what's your vibe right now? Like, what's the vibration? Like, hey, like all that stuff my son and I were exposed to. And so like I would be with him just rolling around with my son. And we'd go and like go on projects, everything.
I love it. How long did you work for him?
About a year and a half.
Year and a half,
2 years. Yeah.
And then what? You went out and said, "Hey, I'm going to start my own wholesaling venture."
Yeah, because when I came to him, I was like, Alan, I want to work for you, but I don't want to work for you, bro. I want to be you. Like full transparency at the very beginning.
Right.
And I was like, I don't want to work for you forever. I want to be you. Right. And so then we ended up doing stuff. And then Alan ended up actually having a heart attack. So one morning, and he was like, I think when this happened, he was like 36.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah, super young. One of the hardest working men I know. So me and him wake up one morning. I'm going to look at an 8 unit that we're trying to buy, and he's going to buy like 3 units from like a probate attorney. And that morning, his heart hurt, and he was like, he didn't know why. It's because he had a heart attack. He goes, locks up the 3 units, comes home, and then like lays on the couch. Then his wife takes him to the hospital. And so then we were like running the business for a little while, and like he was still in the hospital. I went and saw him, and then eventually I was like, okay, I think now more than ever is probably my best time to wind down and go off on my own. And then he started winding everything down, bro. And this taught me more power of real estate. He went and bought a 16 unit and then rehabbed that, refinanced it, used the 16 unit and the refinance money to pay for a $500,000 motorhome. And he went across the country for a year and a half.
I love it. Is he okay now?
Yeah, he's fine. He's out in Florida. I don't know if you know who Mark Evans is, but him and Mark Evans and my friend Matt Gary Beaton all live in the same neighborhood.
Love it. Mark Evans, one of the OG Titanium Vault guests. I think he was a guest back in 2018, something like that. One of the most difficult interviews I've ever had because he was so high level. It was difficult for me to like keep up with what Mark was saying, especially, I was a baby entrepreneur. So, okay, you go out, you start your own thing. What is that like? Because I asked Dean this question, and I want to ask you the same question because I'm curious to see if you have the same answer. It's odd to me that you guys, being sports, football players, you're so accustomed to having this leader, this coach, or multiple coaches, this organization, strict guidelines that doesn't really fit the entrepreneur spirit. The entrepreneur spirit is kind of like, I don't want anybody telling me what to do. But your whole life, you kind of had someone telling you what to do. Was that difficult early on in your journey as an entrepreneur, being the leader, not having that quote unquote coach?
No, I would say I was a leader on the field, and I've always had authority problems.
Okay, there you go. So you're the perfect entrepreneur then.
Yeah, I've always had, let's say, some authority problems. Like I got in a spat with my D coordinator in college. Like I'd get in spats all the time with coaches because like I would be like, okay, no, I see this. It doesn't make sense. Why don't we do this instead? And they'd be like, no. I'd be like, okay, well, here's your flaws. And then they'd get butthurt because I pointed out the flaws. And then, yeah,
So yes, the perfect entrepreneur. So let's talk about that, getting started. What year is this? When are you officially, is this 2019, 2020?
like 2019 is when I first get going on my own.
Perfect first year, right before COVID shuts down the world.
Right. Well, 2019 is when I first got going on my own. I went broke, so broke that me and my son went homeless. Ended up having to move in with my girlfriend.
Jeez.
And then like it got so bad to where I finally had a deal locked up in the middle, like towards the end of 2019, and I had to drive down because my son was down with his mom in Bakersfield, and I had to call my mom for $20 to get to Bakersfield. My mom, I'm sorry, I'd never ask you for money, but I need $20. Like I got to go grab Zeno, and I'm supposed to have this deal closing. I thought it was going to close. It hasn't closed.
Yep.
She's like, okay. I get down there, and I ran out of gas, and I had to call for another $20 to get home. But then the next day, a $30,000 wire hit.
That's real estate right there, baby. One day you're borrowing $20, the next day you got 30 grand in your account. So, you're wholesaling 2019. Was there struggles
the second half of
that, or did it pretty
2019,
much just take off?
after that, we did fine.
Yeah.
Like I did like 2 deals before that in the first half of the year. I sold 1 deal to Jason that I found driving for dollars. And this will go into like for other people, dude. Jason said he'll buy it without walking it. He just saw pictures. And he's a man of his word because I really needed that $5,000, and he honestly should have never bought that fucking house.
Right.
Because now the house has been torn down. Like it was a tear down, bro. He was like, fuck, bro. I told you I'm gonna buy it. I'm gonna buy it. And so he buys it and he just threw it back on the market. And yeah, that was crazy. That was like in January. I was like January, February-ish. And then I got a job knocking for solar because some of my friends were making money doing solar. And so I just go around, I'd use Property Radar. I'd be like, okay, who actually owns the houses?
Right.
I'd only go knock those ones. And then I'd look around for houses that I'd want to wholesale during that time. And then I got another job selling franchise advertising online after that. And so I had to do all email communication and phone calls. And so I do that. And then when I wasn't doing that, me and my son would be in my room and I'd just be cold calling. And I'd just like play video games while I'd be cold calling. And then we closed that $30,000 deal. And then from there, we started actually gain more traction in 2020. And then we started call magicians like in the middle of COVID. I didn't even think about like it was COVID. I just had a bunch of people coming to me like saying like, oh, you're really good at VAs. And I never like had a truly like massive scaled up wholesaling operation. I had a leads manager, probably 12 cold callers, and then me. And it was pretty easy because I only talked to people who wanted to do shit.
Right.
Like the leads manager did their job, the cold callers did their job, and I could talk to a few people a day and I'd be good. And so like that was my business model that I'd set up. And at this point I had a meetup and I was showing a bunch of people like, hey, this is what I'm doing with VAs. Like this is our overhead. This is what it is. This is our deal flow. And we're probably closing like 3 to 4 a month.
Love it. It's rare for people that early on to have success with VAs. Like, where do you think that came from? Because honestly, majority of people, it's like maybe they hire 1 or 2 VAs and then it doesn't work out. They feel like it was a waste of money. What do you think made you successful with using virtual assistants like that?
Me and Alan built an in-house call center when I was working for him. Like we hired a bunch of Okie people at minimum wage who had no teeth and tried to get them to cold call for us in Fresno, California. We had like 8 people in our office. And so that gave me some experience with that. And then football showed me how to just be a leader. And then, bro, I still like had my lumps. Like one of my stories I tell in one of my presentations, I hired on these 2 chicks from Jamaica. And they said they had real estate experience. And I was like, hell yeah, like we're going to get a bunch of leads. 3 weeks go by. I'm like, where the fuck are the leads? But I hadn't talked to them. I hadn't trained them. I hadn't been managing them. Like I hadn't been doing anything. And like they just said they had real estate experience. But that's just not how it works, right? So like I still got my lumps. And then, I mean, I paid for a lot of education. Like that $30,000 check, I probably spent 20 on coaching.
There you go.
Because I do believe in coaching, right? Like entrepreneurship and like football, like you always have a coach. Tom Brady had a coach.
Right.
Michael Jordan had a coach. Like everybody still has a coach to show them how can I get 1% better. And I still invest a ton of money every year into my education on whatever it is, whether it be leadership, sales, marketing, whatever we're trying to grow at the time.
I think that's, you bring up Jordan and Brady, but even like just at this point, 240 plus interviews that I've done, almost every successful person talks about, hey, this is really when things took off. When I reinvested back into myself, I hired a coach, laid out the blueprint for me, and like the shortcuts where, yeah, I mean, early on, you talk about those lumps. I think that's what coaching and mentorship really does, is kind of eliminates that part of it. Like, hey, don't do that. I'm going to save you this 6-month problem and just fast forward you to the success. Because, I mean, I'm just doing the math here. I mean, you started, Call Magicians there late 2020. I mean, you have really fast forwarded your success. I mean, we're talking about
pretty fast.
I mean, what you're talking about is essentially over the past 2.5, 3 years, you kind of went from getting off the ground to you've got this, Call Magicians, you've got your real estate business, you own a portfolio at this point, right? I mean, talk about that. I mean, when did that start where it was like, hey, let's actually start taking down some properties and building wealth?
Again, Alan was the one like, you need to buy shit. He was like, you need to buy shit, and taxes are going to be a bitch for you at a point in time.
Right.
And so we started to buy in 2020. I started to buy sub 2 stuff in California, and then when they shut down the auctions, that sucked because like now nobody really had to leave their house, and there wasn't really good sub 2 opportunities in the state of California.
Right.
And so like I flew out to South Bend with Kalani. And I mean, bro, we went and looked at like a ton of houses, but then it's like, man, we got to buy 60 houses in order for this to make any sense with plane tickets, maintenance, travel, right? All this shit, find a good property manager. So we didn't want to do that. And then I bought a house down in Bakersfield. We bought a couple in Lemoore and here in Fresno. And my house down in Bakersfield during COVID. Let this be a lesson for first-time landlords. Man. So my partner and I, like, we buy it sub 2, no money out of pocket. Like, she gave us the house. We're like, okay, awesome. We went and raised money in second position, put it in second position. And then we rehabbed the whole thing. We were pretty much a little bit underwater on the deal. And I was like, okay, fine. I'm going to lease option this. I want to get a $20,000 option fee.
Yep.
So I got a $20,000 option fee, which is a really high option fee on like $100,000 house. Like it was like a $130,000 house.
Yeah, it's very high.
Right, it's extremely high. And so we got a $20,000 option fee. I get a background check on the guy. I was like, yeah, he has a criminal record, but I called his old landlords and they said he's fine. The dude pays us for 3 months, quits paying us, blah, blah, blah. And then 6 months comes along. I'm like, bro, we got to evict you. You haven't even been answering our calls. And then he sends me a picture and a message saying, if you try to evict me, I'm going to take my $20,000 back with this industrial jackhammer. And all of the walls had already been ripped out. And I was like, Jesus Christ. The dude was a meth addict that we didn't know. Like, they're pretty normal, like when we moved him in and everything else. For the next year, I could not get that man out of the house. I sent a runner down there to post notices. He chased him down to the machete. He chased down our contractor. I'm getting letters from code enforcement. And I call the code enforcement office. I was like, you're going to stop sending me these fucking letters. You go down there and you deal with this bullshit because you guys will let me kick him out.
Right.
I go and I think I spoke at Mike Hambright's event. Was it last year? It was probably last year. And when I'm coming home, I'm like, all right, I'll meet you guys down there. I'm going to leave from the airport and I'm going to go to this house. As I pull up with code enforcement at that house, the house is still smoking and wet because the dude had lit it on fire.
Wow.
And all the cops do is they just take him out of the house and like whatever, and he just like walks away. I was like, this motherfucker should be charged with arson. Nothing. And then, bro, there's more. I'm like, all right, I'm gonna sell this bitch. whatever. We'll get our insurance money. If you ever deal with a fire damage property, get a private adjuster. It'll
Yes.
make you so much more money. So our boy Henry out here in Fresno helps us out. We're gonna make like 70 grand selling this thing. Like the best thing that could have happened though was him lighting it on fire, because like we would have been upside down
Right.
if he didn't light that thing on fire. And then I find a buyer, whatever. We get EMD in. We're gonna close on Monday. This is on Friday. The buyer calls me. Yo, I'm out. The house is on fire again. I was, what do you? I was like, what do you mean, bro? And he sends me a bunch of pictures, and I was like, all right, bro, I'll call title and tell him to send you back your money. But luckily, we found another buyer. We didn't end up making 70. We made it like 50 or something. And at that point, I was like, I'm not buying any more rentals. Like, I don't want to deal. If we're gonna buy rentals, we have one in like a B class area. We have another one in like a B class. Well, we have one in like a D class area, one in the C class. The D class getting that thing like leased up, and the issues the day we bought it, like we had break-ins, they ripped out all of our cameras, and then when the cops came and kicked them out, they just walked over to the neighbor's house and went inside. I was like, oh, bro, this is fucking nuts.
So I have to ask you a question, because listen, California, extremely liberal, right?
Oh, bro.
I'm a Texas boy. We handle things like this a little bit different here in conservative states. There's no year-long staying and not paying, okay?
Bro.
So was that a California thing? Was it a COVID thing?
It was COVID. It was COVID in California. Bro, we even gave them a chance toward California was offering to pay their rent for like 6 months to a year, and they just didn't sign the paperwork. I was like, I don't care, guys. Just fucking sign the paperwork. Like, just get me my money. Like, stay in here. I don't give a fuck. Just sign the paperwork so I can get paid.
That is crazy, man. So now, is that resolved? I mean, walk us through what would happen now if a tenant were to do that in California.
It'd take like 3 to 6 months. We have me and my friend, we're doing a flip here in, I'd say, like a D class area in Fresno. It took us forever to get the person evicted. Now the person's suing us and our insurance company for $500,000 because they said they broke their wrist walking out of the house at 3 a.m.
That is crazy, dude. I mean, I don't understand owning rentals in California because of these laws. I mean, it's essentially like
Jason, bro. Jason did it right. Jason bought a bunch of houses on the west side for fucking 50 grand, and now they're worth like 300.
Well, that makes sense, but still
across 100 units.
Well, yeah, but I mean, having them as rental properties though, and running into these types of issues, where essentially the tenants know that they have all of the power.
Oh, bro, the tenants know they have you by the balls.
Yeah, it's crazy. I mean, just the liability that you're taking on. And you bring up a good point with what he did, where, hey, you're not paying, you're going to go through the eviction process. I have always had the fear that a tenant would do what he did, which is, I'm going to tear your house up if you kick me out of here. Oh, yeah. That's always been a fear of mine, on just the headache. Understanding that insurance is there and stuff like that, but it's just the stress and the headache of what's going on there. That's insane. So no more rental properties for you. So what is the path moving forward for you? What is the strategy that you want to do moving forward?
Self-storage. We bought a 22,000 square foot one at the end of last year. We bought a 10,000 square foot one in like March. We were going to buy another 10,000 square foot one that was going to close actually here in the next week or so, but we got it measured and it's 4,500 feet smaller than what the seller said it was and what public record said it was. And that was going to be a home run if it was actually what it was. Now it's just not worth it. Right. And so storage is now like in real estate. That's mainly what I do, is self-storage. Like we'll wholesale.
How did that come about? How did you go wholesaling, landlord, some flips to, hey, self-storage is where we want to go?
Kalani, actually. She left her corporate job. So my girlfriend, she left her corporate job. She was leading Aldi, their Northern California expansion, like opening up all the grocery stores up Northern California. And she hated it because like they work you to death. Like her hours were crazy. And she was driving all day long. And so she looked into like Airbnb, then she found storage, and it took us 2 years to buy a storage deal. Like it again, like another like long, like 2 years, probably like 80 to 100 grand in bullshit of education costs, lost EMDs, inspection costs, like, travel costs, like all this shit over that 2 year span, and like all those lessons. And then we finally got a good one. Like the one we bought in December, I was buying it for 1% interest, but it's 2% interest because I had to go back. So I bought it for, initially it was 900,000, 1% interest, like $300,000 down. And it's worth like 1.8 once it's stabilized. So I was like, yeah, bro, that's a bargain to me. And then I had to take him down to like $200,000 down. And so I gave him another interest point. And with that 2% interest, now I make $100,000 on the back end.
So when you're saying that, you're essentially creatively getting seller finance terms on these. That's how you're taking them down at this point.
Yeah. I mean, bro, right now it's hard to buy stuff. Like stuff just doesn't really pencil.
Right.
To where we come from such a fast-paced single-family world, bro. Like if you're a multifamily dude, you do 4 deals a year. That's a lot of work to get those things to the finish line.
Oh, yeah. You're killing it.
Yeah, like you are crushing it if you're doing, especially like big boy deals, and if you're doing 4 of them a year, bro, you are crushing it.
You're actually just killing it if you have 4 deals to essentially underwrite and analyze. And at that point, that's crazy. Because there's so many multifamily deals that just right out the gates, I mean, it just doesn't pencil. So it's like dead, on to the next.
Exactly. You can just look at the price point. Like, no,
yeah.
I ain't doing it.
So is it pretty much the same way in storage?
So in storage, one thing that I found, if this is, let's say, the West Coast and this is the East Coast, on the West Coast past Denver, there's an 1/8 less of amount of storage facilities. All of the storage facilities are East Coast and South. And we were only trying to go West Coast because, like, bro, I don't want to hop on a 6-hour plane flight.
Right.
Right. So if we would have gone East Coast, it'd be a little bit better. And so now, like, we've opened it up a little bit. And now we'll start opening up our marketing because it's been a heavy lift for the one up in Susanville because we bought that thing like 20% occupied. Oh, that's a heavy lift to get that thing really released. We got to get a new fence in, paving it, everything, getting it painted, new doors, right? And you're in a semi-tertiary market. And you know this, bro. It's hard to find contractors who are worth a shit.
Oh, yeah.
In
That's
tertiary
extremely
markets.
difficult.
Yeah, it's hard.
So when you take one of these down and like you're saying 20% occupied, so now you need to, essentially rehab it, release 80% of the building. Are you guys doing that, or are you kind of outsourcing it, or it's all internal?
It's all internal. I mean, we have a GC, but at this point, Kalani does most of the ops on that side. Like, I'll handle like the sales, marketing if we need to raise any capital. But she's handling like the release, the Google My Business stuff, getting everything painted, managing contractors. I'd say it would have been easier if it wasn't such a tertiary market. Right. Like, it would be a lot more straightforward. But as you know, bro, like sometimes like, well, this is the only electrician and he doesn't pick up his phone besides every other fucking Tuesday for some reason.
Right.
And we need him to come put in these goddamn lights. And he gave us a bid and it was the best bid. And we can't really find anyone else to do it.
Makes sense. So moving forward, that's kind of like your path. That's what you want to do. The thing that's enticing to me about storage is it feels like once you've taken it down, especially if you're taking it down with creative finance, then you've stabilized it. It's kind of like game over. It's like you have that in your bucket and now let's move on to the next one, right?
The one we bought in Nevada, we bought it 100% occupied. We've raised the NOI $1,000 a month in the last 6 months. And it's still 100% occupied. Right. And we don't have to do anything with it. That one is awesome. Like, that's what I'm looking for now.
Like, that's going to go to your kids someday, right?
Yeah.
I mean,
we're not selling that. Unless someone comes in and gives us just a crazy, stupid offer. But we bought that one still at 3% interest. We bought that one creative terms too. Like 3% interest, 10% down.
Do you feel like it's easier to get creative finance terms with these commercial self-storage, owners than it is single family.
Here in California, for whatever reason, nobody's really open to it.
Really?
Like nobody, like at Pace and everyone else talks about like sub 2 deals. Bro, I look at all of them that come across my desk. I'm like, no, I don't want to pay a $90,000 entry fee to lock up this cash.
Right.
Like so that for the storage stuff, I think a little bit more. They're a little bit more sophisticated, and they really like they bought that thing for money, and like, yeah, we're gonna retire. Like, we just want some more money, and so I think that is a little bit easier, and the people are used to it. So we're out here at least with the houses, dude. Like we've pitched it so much, and it never really does anything.
Moving forward into the future, do you see yourself developing storage where you're going to buy vacant land, or will it always be, hey, we're going to stick to just rehabbing existing storage units?
I wouldn't rule it out because I mean, if that's what all the big people are doing because it's more cost effective, I don't see why not. But my business partner and I, who own our rentals together, we got like 9 acres sent to us with plans and everything else in like Pennsylvania.
Right.
I was like, bro, I don't know shit about development. Like, and I don't know anybody who I could trust who I could bring in on the deal. So that's, I'd say, what's holding me back to even having the confidence to do so and like knowing it's a deal.
There you go. So one time, way back when, 2018, I had a guest on my podcast. And I didn't say it on air, and I regret not doing it. But afterwards, I said, hey, man, everything you just said, I think you need to be connected to this guy. They ended up becoming business partners, and now they have done all kinds of crazy stuff. So I'm going to do it on air just so one day I can look back if this works out and say, I said it back in 2023. There's a guy named Dave Heil, Heil. Do you know him?
No, I know Thomas Heil.
So Dave, you need to meet. He is big into storage units all across the country. He owns literally billions of square feet at this point. Love to get him on the podcast at some point in time, but he doesn't really do them because he says, what's the point? I need to go buy more storage units. Podcast
does he not raise cash?
No, he does not. Everything he does is self-financed by him and his partners. So I'd love to connect you two to see what you can do. So maybe when we have our 10-year anniversary of the Titanium Vault, I could say, I told Stratton Brown he should get connected with Dave Heil. That'd be cool because, maybe like that Pennsylvania deal, that could be something that he could be your partner on, and he would say, nah, dude, that's a no-brainer. Let's do it. So that being said, moving forward, what are your goals? Where do you want to be, 5-6 years from now?
Where do I want to be 5-6 years from now? I want to be filthy fucking rich first of all. Where do I want to be 5 years from now? I'm still pivoting of what we're gonna do with one of our companies because I have a big check in my bedroom that says Stratton Brown sold a company for $80 million. Right, so that's the overarching goal. How I'm gonna get there, I don't know, but that's the fun part. Because like we talked about before, the previous model was just way too much operational drag in order to even like want to take that type of brain damage. Like it wouldn't have been fun, bro.
Right. So
and
moving
keep
forward,
buying storage too.
What you want to do? You want to get that actual real check for $80 million?
Yeah.
Like I want to.
I went 30, then I thought it was too small.
I love it. 30 is too small, huh?
Well, I mean, bro, you only have so much time to actually do something. And I always look at stuff with all these people doing shit. I don't think they're any smarter than me. I don't think they work any harder than me. They're just going after a different goal that's a bigger goal with a better outcome.
Yeah.
Right. I mean, Mark Zuckerberg worked on Facebook. I worked on football.
Yeah.
Like 2 different outcomes. Right. And even Jamil talks about this. Jamil is like, Grant Cardone was going for $1 billion at the same time I went bankrupt. And Grant Cardone was pretty close to bankruptcy. And I was going for $10 million. I got my $10 million. Grant Cardone got $1 billion.
Yeah.
Right. And so, like, what are you actually shooting for that's going to be the goal and make it worthwhile? Because, bro, you're going to do it. Like, most people in this space will at least come close to their goals. And so if we're going for something, bro, we might as well go big. I wanted to be like an all pro. I wanted to win the Jim Thorpe in college. I wasn't trying to just be a starter. Right? Like I was trying to be the best DB in the country. I was trying to go first round. I was trying to fuck up anybody who's around me. I will lock up whoever it is, right? Like that same mentality. You got to apply that to business.
All right. 2 more questions, and then we're going to wrap up. We're done with the real estate. So if you don't want to hear me ask some dumbass football questions, you can stop listening now. Question 1. Fresno State is playing UC Davis. There's Dean Rogers. There's Stratton Brown. Who's going to win? Dean Rogers handing off the ball right up the middle. Is Dean going to run over Stratton Brown, or what?
No, bro. Dean's going to lose
this?
his knees, baby.
He's going to lose his knees.
Bro, Dean's going to lose his knees, or I'm coming from the side. And just,
there you go. All right.
But Dean, have you met Dean in person?
I have not. I'm going to meet him at Family Mastermind.
Dean's pretty fucking big, bro. He's like 6'4".
You're going to be there, right?
Yeah.
All right. So I think personally that I should bring you and Dean up on stage at Family Mastermind and let's do an Oklahoma drill and see who wins.
Bro, we both have neck problems.
Oh, listen to the excuses. Neck problems. Come on. All right. Last question. You were playing college football in this wave of like every week. The universities are giving you guys like new uniforms, new helmets. Like I saw pictures, y'all had the black with the Bulldog inside, you know.
We had the chrome, the black, the red.
Was that cool? Or were you kind of like,
oh, bro, it's dope as fuck. That's the whole reason you go, bro. I mean, because like everybody wants to go to Oregon to get all the cool shit.
Exactly.
Right, bro. I'm like, that's what our equipment guy was such a stiff. And like we would have to fight tooth and nail to get like a new pair of gloves, you know, like to get a new pair of gloves, new pair of cleats. But like I'd get new cleats for every uniform. I'd get new gloves for every uniform. What else? We didn't get a ton of different travel gear. Like, bro, all the gear though, like that's what it's about.
Did you get to keep any of it?
When I went broke, I had to sell all of it to pay my rent.
Oh my God. That's
I mean, not really, bro. I mean, if I really want it now, I have like a jersey. I think I have 2 jerseys. And then I have a bunch of gloves from like me and my friends that would swap gloves whenever I'd play my friends in college. That's because like growing up, like I played on USA's rugby team. So a bunch of us went on and played college. And then a bunch of my friends in like the 7-on-7 circuit went on and played college. So I have like majority of anybody who I played who I knew someone on the team, I have like a pair of their gloves.
Love it. So for those of you that can't tell, I'm a huge sports fan. So much so I've almost wondered if I should start like a sports podcast.
I think you should. I think it would help out overall with reach.
Dude, I'm such a huge sports fan, and just to be quite frank with you, I had the work ethic. I just didn't have the talent. I mean, I tried my damnedest to play college football, and I would have been okay just being like special teams, you know, just to be a part of that experience. It's funny you bring up like that's the whole point, and like going to places like Oregon and Fresno State is the gear. My question is how the hell does Penn State ever get anybody to go there?
When I was in college, Penn State players are making $60,000 a year. And this is just from scholarship money. And we were making like $1,800 a month, and they were making like
I get it,
$5,000 to $6,000 a year.
But if you're good enough to go to Penn State, you're probably good enough to go to like Michigan, Ohio State, somewhere else where you're not wearing a fucking white helmet, bro.
Yeah, but bro, have you seen their stadium?
Yeah, it's cool.
Me and my girlfriend watch college football. Like we're college football fanatics. And their stadium at night is fucking bananas.
At night, but remember,
100,000 deep. Oh, like bro, like I live for that. We played in Nebraska with 100,000 people, and it was crazy.
I get it, but you can go to other places that have the exact same experience, that have cool uniforms.
I wonder what their selling point is recruiting wise, and I didn't think about this like coming up, but like all coaches are, bro, they're salesmen half the time. Like they're a 2-sided salesman.
Yeah.
Right. Like they're selling your ass to get there. Then you get there. They tell you you're a piece of shit. Right.
Dude,
Like,
I grew up, my family is huge Texas Longhorns fans. So
okay.
my whole childhood was essentially Mac Brown's tenureship
Oh, that's dope.
at Texas, right? But here's the thing. Outside of, the 05 championship and then the 09 season with Colt McCoy, where we lost because Colt McCoy got a stinger. I don't care what anybody says at Alabama. That's the only reason why we lost that game. The Texas fans just called Mac Brown a terrible football coach, and he was just nothing but a glorified recruiter. Because we got the talent.
That's your job, though.
Exactly. So I was saying he's not the offensive coordinator. He's not the defensive coordinator.
No,
his job's to get their ass there.
His job is to 100% recruit and lead people. And this goes into like what I was talking about, Fresno State was the worst run organization. The way our coaches were, the way they, like our head coach would come out to practice and he'd just be on his phone. He wouldn't really do anything. He wouldn't interact with the players. He didn't even know where we were from. And so like he couldn't lead men.
Yeah.
Right. And so then like that's what it's recruiting and leading men. If I personally believe in any business, if you could be the best leader in the world, you don't need any other skill set. Because all Google does is go out and recruit the best talent in the world, and then no one else gets that talent, and Google keeps making $1 billion a day.
Yeah. But bro, you asked me before, like, what is Titanium like? I mean, I'm essentially the head coach.
Yeah.
I mean, my job is to do stuff like this, the live content, the YouTube content, for what? I'm recruiting students. I'm recruiting future talent. Everyone that works for me right now has come from some form of social media. Not Indeed or ads or anything like that. It's people watching me on TikTok saying, bro, I want to come work for you. That looks easy. You literally post every day you buying a new house in some part of the United States. Yep, you can come work for us. And so essentially there is a correlation there between like a business owner and a head coach of a college football team. Much more so than in the NFL. College, it's like, listen, you got to recruit. That's like their main objective. And you hear about it. They kind of live.
Their schedules now are trash, bro.
Yeah. I mean, they're always traveling. They're always in somebody's living room where they're promising the world. And like you said, promising the world until they get there. And then it's like, you're a piece of shit.
You're a piece of shit. Get running. You're fourth string. I know we told you to come in and start, but that was a fucking lie.
I love it, man. All right. So for the people that want to follow you, learn more about you, what's the best place for them to do that?
Best place to follow me is on Instagram at StratDaddy. My YouTube is StratDaddy. TikTok should be StratDaddy. Our podcast, I have a podcast I got to start releasing more episodes on, the Winning Move podcast, and then ours that RJ was just on, one of our favorite guests of all time, Deal Champs podcast.
And like I said, man, the Deal Champs is cool. I love how y'all are mirroring that wholesale hotline vibe with the 3 hosts and then the guests. It's a unique thing that not many people are doing out there. But the cool thing about the Deal Champs podcast is I was getting essentially 3 different business owners' perspectives and questions, which I think from that point, y'all are really pulling out as much as you possibly can from your guests. So if you haven't checked that out, check it out, Deal Champs podcast. Stratton, man, I appreciate you coming on, sharing your story. And best of luck with your venture there with the self-storage. And like I said, don't forget, you got to go connect with Dave Heil, okay?
All right. Thank you so much for having me on, bro.
See you, man.